I do have an emergency motion from Councillor Cunningham in light of the fatality on O'Connell Street. Can we take that? We still have a lot of other items. Can we take that item as agreed? Sorry, Councillor Cunningham, you want to speak on that?
That's fair enough.
Thanks. The most dangerous vehicles on our streets are heavy goods vehicles. As any pedestrian and cyclist knows, often drivers of these vehicles can't see the pedestrians and cyclists around them. And other vehicles, other cities around the world have required safety standards for HGVs on our city streets, and so should we. Transport for London has a 5-star system which rates how easy it is for drivers to see the surroundings, what the quality of the mirrors and so on. This is based on the design of the vehicles that's set at the point of production, so it's easy to implement. You just put in the make and model of the vehicle and the year of production, and that tells you what the rating is. In Dublin City, we already require permits for HGVs to drive in the core city and in other parts of the city, so we can roll this star rating into that permitting system immediately. And what I'm proposing is that from 2027, we require every vehicle applying for a permit to have at least a 1-star rating, 2028, at least a 2-star rating, and so on. This would have an immediate effect all through the city because delivery vehicle fleets are replaced on an ongoing basis. And if this motion is passed, then anybody looking to buy a HGV for their fleet will say, I need it to be able to deliver to the core city centre in 3 years' time, and so they'll buy something with at least a 3-star rating. And that will make it safer, not just in the core city centre, but all across the city, because they're not just buying a truck to deliver into the city centre. So we can overnight make vehicles safer for pedestrians and cyclists and avoid further incidents like the death just a couple of weeks ago and the ongoing yet through the last few years of cyclists and pedestrians. So I would ask people to support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cunningham. Is there someone to second? Sorry. Is there someone to formally second the motion? Councillor Horner?
Yeah. Can we just get a response from the manager on this? Because I know this is something that I've pursued as well in the past. Like, I know, Brendan, you and I have been talked about this issue previously, and I know that you had indicated at the time that you felt that there was more that needs to be done from the department side. But then when I proceeded at the time with the department, they were still telling us that the safety requirement for HGVs operating in the city centre area over and above the legal requirement for vehicles as per GSR2 would be dealt with by the local authority. So the implication from the department is that there is still scope and potential with the local authority to improve safety standards for HGVs. And if you don't mind, I know we're pressed for time now, but the final point I just want to make about this, the reason I had pushed this a few years ago, as I had said at the time, was a friend of mine was knocked down on the quays by a HGV who had no sight, and when it went to the courts, there was the driver was found not to be at fault because the driver could not see her on a bicycle immediately within the turning zone of that heavy goods vehicle. She suffers lifelong injuries as a result and will never be able to fully walk without pain again. And a driver, there is no culpability. The culpability is in the design. And unless we design out that flaw, other people will lose not just their lives, but also they will suffer lifelong consequences as a result. It is urgent that we deal with it, and I hope that this week, when we see someone losing their lives in the streets, we will not again be found wanting when it comes to the opportunity to actually improve safety for everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to let them, as with a emergency motion, the manager come in, and then we can make a decision to agree or not straight away. Brandon?
Yeah, so thanks, Lord Mayor, and thanks, members. So there's a number of different items, I suppose, that we need to consider. So first of all, the broad thrust of the motion is really welcome. You know, we do want to make sure that the trucks that are using our city are as safe as possible. However, what we have to bear in mind is the permit issuing that the City Council does is for 5-axle vehicles and during the hours of the cordon, which are 7 to 7. There are only 5-axle vehicles, so while we can look to put additional requirements on the 5-axle vehicles, anything that's 4-axle, 3-axle, 2-axle, or anything that's coming through the city at night time is not taken into account through the permit system. There is a number of EU legislation requiring, for example, the blind spot detection to be on all trucks, to be on all HGVs from 2024. And that is perhaps more of a mechanism that we need to look at. But I suppose our problem is that even if we decide that we're going to try and take it up, it does only affect a small proportion of the trucks. It only affects them within the HGV cordon, which, bear in mind, is only really the canal cordon. You know, it doesn't have any bearing on any trucks that move further outside. You know, so for example, on the Nace Road, on the Navan Road, or whatever, they're not affected by this. So I do think it's one of those items that we'd really like to see some progress on. And perhaps the more appropriate way to deal with this is to actually bring it to the Mobility SPC and to actually decide what we can do. Because as I say, at the moment, it is really only the 5-axle vehicles in the cordon during the hours of the cordon, and that is not a 24-hour, and it does not cover the whole of the city.
Can we agree this motion and refer it on to the Mobility and Public Realm SPC? Councillor Felgen?
Could I also ask that you write to the Minister, just to flag that in the Government's Road Safety Action Plan, in Phase 1, direct vision was to be looked at. In the review of Phase 1, it said it was on track. In Phase 2, it's missing. Okay. It directly affects us more than any other area.
As Ardver, I'm happy to write to the Minister. No problem on that. Okay?